Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be showing you a spot for every single map where you can use Starlord's team up ability, the TP, on both attack, defense, and every single point of every single map. A lot of people have been asking me for a new guide for Starlord, and I think this would fit that. So first we'll start with the convoy maps, and first off we're going to go to Yggdrasill Path. Now my idea of a good spot for Starlord's team up ability is being around health packs, but never on top of them directly. So let's say for this map, on defense, I typically throw mine here. This is far enough away from a health pack where no one's going to like stumble upon it if they were to go get health themselves as an enemy. And every game I've played on this map on defense, first point, no one seems to ever break that, even when they team wipe my whole team. Up to this point too, because it's in a hidden spot there. Why you wouldn't put it over here is because of this being a common flank route, so your TP would almost always be destroyed, which is what you want to avoid. So when you do TP to this spot, you can usually easily roll and dash away here to this pack, or your team is generally right here. And if you wanted to go deeper, there would also be a pack over here. Now defense for second point changes things up a little bit because they have a lot more space to work with compared to first point. So here I would typically put my TP right around here, and I say here because it's next to a health pack, but this isn't a health pack that's commonly traversed as this one would be. So if they're really far back, I might be putting it in here until they make space and get to around this area where they will traverse this, which then I would obviously like back it up. I would put it down here. I could put it over here, or I would go around to the back and I could easily put it right around here, which will never get destroyed, obviously. Even someone flanking wouldn't be able to see this part. If they take both of your first 2 points, generally you don't want it anywhere over here that you can see. I like to put my TP in this corridor. This isn't a commonly traversed flank route as it's kind of difficult to get to in the first place for the enemy. But if it is commonly traversed in your game, you could just as easily put your TP like behind this, or simply in this lower position right here. It's all about not putting it in a spot where they can easily get to. So if they're coming around here, they have to push all the way over here or flank all the way through here, which is like crazy risky for them just to see your TP. And TPing to somewhere like that when they're back there is not risky for your life at all. Now that the philosophy has been explained, I'll be quicker about telling you the next locations in the next maps. Now on attack, it's a little different because it's very dynamic. You're going to be probably just placing it anywhere behind you because it's very difficult for you to see the enemy on defense flanking you to this extent. So as the cart moves up, obviously you just like move your TP elsewhere, aka out of spawn if you ever place it in spawn. Again, just keep it near health packs but not on top. Now say you do take this point, you can definitely destroy your TP, but you don't want to keep it like in their backline. So if you want it to be a defensive TP, I'm still gonna have it like somewhere over here, which is quite close to us. Even if it's not near a pack, this is gonna be near my team so I can get healed right after. And I can't necessarily put it here because it's a very easily accessible flank route for the enemy, even if they don't have flank heroes. But as the cart moves up and you take more and more space, there are different locations you can use, like this area, and you can get that pack right after. And if you place it right on the pack, obviously it can be seen, so don't do that. And I would say the positioning of the TPs are more important for, say, defense because you're more static and the attack phase feels more dynamic. I would say you just change the TP position based on how far you guys are pushing it. Otherwise, it just stays put in the same spot. So as much as I want to give you like the most specific best spot for Starlord TP each map and each point, it's more about just being dynamic with the situation. Like if the card is up here in the spaces around this area, you guys can like be confident that this TP will like never break unless they have someone flanking right here, which is really risky again. As long as it's behind you guys and it's not going to get broken and it's near support after, should you need it, there's not really an issue in like the exact spot. But I will be giving you more exact spots in the next maps now. Now, as we head into Midtown on defense, first point, I typically have one major spot that I've always used, and it would be this alleyway. This alleyway is deep enough to where essentially the entire map up until they get to this point, I will change it to around here. This is a good area that no one can really get to, and it covers all of first point after that alleyway is taken. Once they take all of first point, there's nothing you can really do about anywhere over here. So I typically put my TP either underneath here or around this area right here where it can reach the health pack and it's not easily seen by anyone over here. Now, once second point's been taken, on third point of Midtown, I like to put my TP around here. But when they start taking enough space, you can easily change it to back here where they'd have to fully take over your spawn to actually see it. So obviously it's the safest option. And you could just use that to begin with, to be honest. Now on attack, I tend to keep my TP right around this area. This is a good spot for getting this health pack, and it's typically still a really good TP even when you take over this area, because that's not too far back and you can just swoop on through the bottom area. In my games, when I don't want to have it over near that area anymore, even with us being pushed up like that, I typically put the TP around here. It's not typically broken very often in that spot either. Now when you guys do take first point, I do like this corner right here. This corner is really good because it's near this in-building health pack when this building is created. But don't put it in the building because this building is super traversed by the enemy. But after you make enough progress, it's definitely smart to keep your TP up here because no one ever comes up here or looks up here. Now this spot is better than both that area where the health pack is and this area where the health pack is, because these are easily traversed when you're trying to take this last area to point. And when you do eventually take second point, until the point is like further up the street, I'm gonna still keep this behind it. There's no point in having it ahead of the point because that's still the enemy's space. And the whole point is just not have your TP be at risk of breaking, right? When you guys do take the street and say you are on the last area for the last fight, a good TP spot would be within this building when this building is broken. So you could put it there, or you could put it closer to here if no one's ever flanking through this window and really interrupting any flank space. Other than that, that's pretty much all of Midtown, and let's get to the next. Now onto Arakko. On first point defense, a really good spot that uses up pretty much almost all of this first point is this. If you put it over here, this is an easy flank route for enemies to see and shoot. When they do take this area, I would like to switch it up. I typically move it to the high ground over here. Even if it's next to or on top of this health pack, they have to go super deep for this, so at that point it's already going to be found. On second point, I don't want it anywhere near any of this line of sight. There's really no point in not having it like severely far in the back. This would take up all of second point and you should be good to go, solely because this is a super easily traversable area and there's nowhere real good you can hide it. Third point is almost the same sort of thing. I would recommend having it somewhere deep like here. It might not be next to a health pack, but your supports are definitely going to be around here or somewhere you can easily get back to. Even through the last fight, no one is really looking over here. If you do want to move it, you could easily put it in this corner right here, because this corner is even harder to see when you are the enemy over here attacking. If you're on attack, I think this is a good area right here. And as your team moves up to the final fight area, I would argue this is also a good spot, even with this being on a health pack, because truthfully, where else are you going to put it? Now in second point, there's no problem with putting over here. No one's ever up here on the left side up until maybe you're ready to put it, say, in this corner. Oh, or it can go down there. It doesn't really matter. You have flight and there's a pack down there and this wouldn't be seen anyway. So here or down there, honestly, if you guys are on last fight area. Now for the third point, there's a lot of versatility. This is a good corner, but I would also argue that this is a good area, but also you could just put it behind this wall and it would never be found as well. And say you did take this area and you guys are on the final fight, I don't see a problem with putting in either one of these areas where the TPs are. I've used this area and it's worked really well for me while we're on attack. And if for some reason you're not a fan of that area, there's also this area, but it doesn't seem to have any health packs. All right, next up we got Spider Islands. All right, so when you're defending a point like this map, typically my TP is like super far back. They take a lot of chokes pretty easily. When I'm feeling really risky, I like to put my TP around this area if I want to get out and like get back in quick, because this is around where the sports play and this is where a quick health pack is. But I only do that if I'm like monitoring this area. I'm not going like all the way over here and like going in their face and then TPing to a location that might just get me killed. This is a like undisputed probably best spot for the TP right there. I know a lot of people probably like this high ground area, which is also good obviously, but if you want to have it be a little bit closer and next to the health pack, something that's never going to be traversed because no one goes through here, this is the best spot. And if you want to play it more up front, like there's another spot here. But off to the second point, if first point is taken, you're on defense for this map. I like to put my TP in this room. I'd argue this spot is really good for the TP on second point up until they start taking this area and they start traversing through there. Only then will I really move it to right here. This becomes the next spot. And on third point, when second point is taken on defense, I like to look back near spawn. There's no point in having it really like too close because this is a get out of jail free card ability, so you might as well just have it in a good spot, right? Like that's a good spot. No, there's no point in like fighting a team here just for them to like take 5 seconds to come up to here and oh no, I TP here and I'm like 1 HP and I can still die. I'm like still in their line of sight when I TP out, which is not really the move in my opinion. So this is probably one of the only good spots, or just anywhere like behind cover near spawn. It's okay with it being close to spawn because you're just trying to make sure you live when you TP out. Also, another spot for the second point, you could use this area but just know that people do come around here sometimes. Psylocks like to like go around here and look for stuff in our backline. Now say we're on attack. This is a good spot I like when we're on first point, but don't forget you could also keep your TP on the roof. You can totally use it in spawn here.
Got it.
On second point, I would argue having it behind this is a really good idea, or just like anywhere behind. It's all smart. And for third point, honestly, you just have it over here. Like there's no special spot on third point. This point is so small. Just keep it there the whole time until you want to like maybe put over here. If you guys are trying to take third point last fight area, that's probably the best. All right, next we got the convergence maps. We're going to start off with this Wakanda convergence map. Typically, I like to have my teleport around here. So this is an area where if people come to flank like I would on attack, I'm around this area all the time. I would not know there's a TP over here and I would be confused when they get over there. Another good spot could be around this corner. It's not necessarily right next to a pack, but there is one over there. Now say first point is taken, I do have to go back quite far for the first TP spot. There's no point in having it like anywhere over here or anywhere that's easily traversable, aka over here. So you have to go like all the way back here and either put it down near this health pack or simply up here. Now say second point is also taken. You guys are going to back up and go super far. This is like a common theme with defense. The smoke typically comes up in this area. This is probably your best spot for a TP because of the smoke half the time and just because it's like the best spot. Say the enemy is fighting here and you're fighting them and you're getting yourself almost killed. Like this TP spot is still fine. Like you're still going to be regaining fuel, regaining rolls, getting healed by your supports, and re-engaging at the same time. Say you're on attack on this map. The first place I would think to use is up here, believe it or not. That's a really good spot for the TP. When you want to TP back, if you're like in the enemy backline behind this bridge, that's a good spot to TP back to because there's health packs there and your supports are around this wall probably. You should know why I'm not going to say to put over here, right? Now on second point, I don't typically go through left side because that is a congested area and only like one real narrow pathway. So I typically flank around right every time, and due to that and this being so far back, this is a good spot even with it being next to the pack. Only when we're on this last fight area will I place it around this area. Take second point and suddenly you're reusing the same spot. This is a good area. That becomes your spawn room and there's a pack down here with your supports over here. But I've also been known to use this area due to there being smoke presence in this room half the time on third point. Now when you are attacking on third point, I'd argue that putting in a position like that where the pack is and they don't really have access to get to is still like the #1 best spot. This isn't really something you swap up. So when they're like around this area or you're on the last fight, that's still a good TP spot in all honesty. Like where else are you going to put it? There's nowhere really else. Next up we got Clintar, and Clintar's got some pretty prominent spots, I must say. I use these spots constantly when I have a rocket on my team on this map. Now if you've seen me stream this game, this is the best spot I use every single time on defense for first point, no matter what. There's nowhere else unless I'm like late. I come here and like this is where I defend, and I like just throw it over here because I didn't have time or I forgot I had it. I put it over there, but I typically put it here. After they take first point, you could use the left or the right. I'll show you the left. You obviously shouldn't put it in that room. It's not as risky because you have to go quite deep to flank to find it, but if you want to just take an extra layer of precaution, you could easily place it here or a little deeper and it will simply never get found. And then with the next spot being around here, you have easy access to this health pack. Now say they do take your second point on Clintar, typically every map you have to like scale back super far, and this map I wouldn't say is any different. When I do fight them on third point, I like to put my TP around here though. And when they do get to around this area, it becomes harder to keep it there because they like to go up top and take space. So I would argue putting it around here becomes the next best option. Now, if we're attacking on Clintar, I like to place my TP over here. I don't typically place it on the left because it's commonly traversed, and I would say this isn't. I keep it there for the entirety of first point. Second point, I don't really use the left side until we're like maybe really far in, but this is a good spot to start off with no matter where they really are. Now, when you start making progress on this point, this is a good spot in this room, which honestly I forgot. I could mention this is a good spot for defense too. But yeah, I'll say attack and defense for this spot. But when you start making progress here, that's also a good spot. And even so over here, you guys are making quite good space. Now, when you take second point, on third point, I like to keep it back here still. Like it has to be behind something where they can't really see it. The next best spot would be, oh, this is blocked off. Usually you could put it in here. That's like usually a spawn room or whatever. And you can also place it around here, which has easy access to this pack. You don't want to place it under here because this is easily traversed by people. And that's as far as you'd go on this map. Now, if you didn't know, Central Park is my favorite map, and it's my favorite because I do the best on this map with Starlord. And in this map, I have really prominent TP spots as well as Clintar. So these are what keep me having extremely low deaths. Now, anytime I'm on this map, I like to put my TP in this exact spot. This exact spot, because this is typically where the average Starlord puts their TP, or maybe under here. Under here is a little more risky because it's on the ground level where more people can find it. This is where everyone goes to get the health pack when they're flanking. But why would the flanker ever go here? Genuinely the best spot for defense first point. But if they catch on to you and they know the kind of Starlord you are, you're gonna have to switch it up, and obviously you can just place it in this room. Now, if they do take your first point, you're gonna have to switch it up and start placing your TP behind the buildings or in this building. One I like to use is here, but even more than that, I use this spot even more so. If they start enveloping that right area though, like you have no other choice, you're gonna have to put your TP in this room, but I do like to keep it here, and typically it's not broken into. Now, if they do take your second point, you're gonna have to go back to third point. The spot I like on the right is in this staircase, but I don't want it at the very top and I don't want it at the very bottom. So I typically just place it, where was it? I think it was around here. I don't want it to be like in line of sight of the commonly traversed pathways. So you don't want it like here. You don't want it here. And you don't want it where someone's gonna like immediately go to. So say someone is flanking someone's Starlord, they usually just like, they would probably just go up here, right? And they're not gonna see this. So that's a good spot if you want to use the weird staircase spot. And the other spots I would argue are good for the third point are around this area. You could pick anywhere honestly, but this is safest. But I personally love this spot right here. This spot is especially good because I don't see many people flanking through here. This isn't typically broken, and if it does get broken, you could easily place it a little further back and it'd be fine. It's a much riskier flank on this area, I would say, because there's less areas to hide compared to this building and staircase, which is why this is one I've used personally a lot. All right, I'm gonna be quick with the attack because we're running out of time. I typically like to have my TP in this area or in this area when I'm on attack. There's nowhere else you should really be putting it unless you wanted to start flanking on the left side. This is a good spot too, or this spot. On second point, I like to still keep it behind this building. I don't really throw it too far out, but this is a good spot. And when you start taking over the end of this second point, so you're fighting over here, there's no real issue in having it either in this building. You could even have it on this roof if you didn't know you could stand on here. No one's really ever going to see that. On third point, you're going to need to start having it in this area down here, and also generally just like on this left area where no one ever flanks from. There's nowhere else too specific that I would argue is better than those, so use your own judgment and consider these suggestions. Next map we will be reviewing spots for is the new Kunlun map, or Heart of Heaven map. I don't know which the official name is, but this is the new map with the smoky fog. It's a convergence map. Starting off on defense first point, if you know, or if you didn't know, you can't see this. Like, unless people shoot through it, you can't really see this. So I would suggest trying it. I've used this area before. I don't use it very often though, because it's not foolproof, obviously, because it's not behind a building or behind walls or far back enough. So this is a spot I love to use. There's no real other good spot except that. So just keep that part in mind. If you didn't notice, I like to keep it like extra safe. That's why it's quite far and there's only one real spot. Like, I'm not going to be keeping it here where it's like essentially behind enemy lines when they start pushing in. That's not really my forte, because I'm trying to get healed and like stay alive following the TP. The next spot I would be looking to do is near the spawn point where you respawn here or here. This is a really good spot for me because no one's coming this distance to get this TP. Not even rocket beacons are here because it's too far away from your team. But I personally have not tested having it anywhere else. I also haven't played this map too much. This is a commonly traversed area. Not much to do here. It's kind of like narrow with, I don't even think there's a health pack here, which is like what makes it even worse. But maybe if you wanted a little bit closer to the fight, you could put your TP here, but there is no like real close health pack. Now say your second point on this map is taken. Places I've used my TP are as follows. I think this is a good TP spot, and also literally in spawn isn't a bad idea because again, like when you TP that far back, one, you're guaranteed safety and survival because one, you're next to your spawn, and two, it's so far back that no one's gonna be there to like really follow up on killing you. And two, while you're coming back, you're refueling your fuel, you're refueling your abilities, and you're seeing the battlefield from a healer perspective. So like you see what's going on, where you want to go next. You got to just consider those ideas as well if you think a spot is too far back. And of course, you don't have to use my exact spots. These are all just suggestions and things that I personally use in my games that work for me. I use it purely for a defensive measure. It's a get out of jail free card for me, the way I use it. I haven't found a way to use it like offensively in a good way. But yeah, on attack, I'll just put my TP here. As we move in, there's no real good spot to use it that would be considered safe in my opinion. So I might just keep it there until maybe we have the choke and I have the opportunity. I'll just place it here, but typically at this point we have won the point and we'll start looking for the next spot. On the second point, I have definitely used this area. I've used, say, this area, which can't easily be found. As we push up and take space, say we're like really far near the end last fight, I wouldn't say there's any problem with putting it near the health pack because you're still relatively close to the fight and you wouldn't die after. Now on third point, I like to keep my TP around this area. This is where you'd spawn from. This is like a really far back TP, but it's okay. When you start taking more space, you can start placing around this building. This building always has fog in it. You could keep it there or keep it in the fog, but people will go through the fog sometimes, so it is kind of risky doing that. I don't ever go on the left, so just keep it around this area and you should be set. Now guys, we're on the domination maps. This is something that's less dynamic because you don't have a moving point. So obviously with a static point, you typically have a static TP unless it's being broken every time you use it, which would make sense, right? Because if it's not moving and people find out where you're TPing to, they're going to go after it. So I'll give you a few spots on each map. And keep in mind, I only place TPs in the flank of the enemy only if I'm deeply flanking. If I'm just simply off angling, there's no reason to do something like that. And since these points are mirrored, I'm only going to be showing it for you on this side because it's the mirrored way on the other side. A spot I like to use on this map is still this high ground. This high ground is really good. When this opens and you break the map in, I like to place it in there as well. But if that starts getting destroyed, which it might start getting destroyed because people start to go up there, there's nothing wrong with going behind this stump. Like this stump, nothing ever really gets past it. Just don't forget, you can break this wall here. This leads to the spawn of the enemy or yourself and has a health pack. And you can also break the ceiling here, which makes this for a really good TP spot if that was your spawn. So don't forget about that. And if you're unaware, instead of placing your TP right here, you could always place it in this corridor that 0% of the Marvel Rivals population will ever see or use. If you're not a fan of the stump area, you could always just switch it up and move it a little bit over here. Nothing wrong with that either. Now when I come out on this point of this map, I like to place my TP around this health pack, but I've also definitely used this spot right here, and especially this spot on the staircase down here. After you break these and you want to get this health pack, this is one of the textbook spots which are out of line of sight but very close to a pack, but won't be seen, you know, when you're getting the pack. Don't go on and placing your TP here. Don't go on placing it like here when the enemy is right here. Like, it's just not very smart in my opinion. I don't even go as far as to place it like in this area unless it's like super deep in this corner or say like hidden behind somewhere here. I've also used this spot though. This spot can work in certain scenarios, so consider all those in this map. All right, here's the last point of the Wakanda map for domination. I honestly just put my TP around this area or even like up here maybe. Here's a good spot as well because this is really deep. But if you're thinking to put it like closer to the fights, I would argue putting it around here is good too. It's like, it's a matter of if you don't want line of sight from there or if you don't want it from here. You could put it here though. That could work. And if you are dead set on putting it in this area of the map, I have tried using this and it works pretty well because people don't typically see around it. I don't usually ever put my TP in this room, but I have definitely put it here if that doesn't get easily flanked because that is pretty close, but it's still hidden. Next up, we got Hell's Heaven, and honestly, just depending on the stage of the fights, where your space is and where the space isn't, that should depend on which spot you select out of the spots I'm showing in this video. On this point, there are quite prominent spots you could pick out of. This is one of them right here around this health pack. Another very low-key spot is around this corner. No one ever comes out here or goes out to there. So just keep that spot in mind, although I don't typically use that, but it is good to know for sure. I don't like to keep my TP around anywhere over here unless it's on the staircase and I'm doing something last second, but there's nowhere here that I would keep it. So just know it's like usually behind walls and even as far as here as a default spot for me. And when any of those start getting broken, instead of changing up my spot to one of those three, this is a good safe spot. This is like really deep in your backline where you can recharge your fuel on the way to the choke where your supports typically are and get healed from that. All right, so this is a different kind of map. Usually when I play on this map, I immediately go over here. This is my pathing. I typically put it around this area because the pack is here and the fight is down there or up here, and it's close, but it's far enough to where it's like it's hidden, so it's essentially far. I abuse the hell out of that spot, so I don't really use anywhere else. And if it does get broken, I just have to resort to like a normal far away behind cover spot, like somewhere like here, even really here. But to be fair, like this spot also works it's behind cover and they have to flank really hard to get to it. And you can just place it down when you retake the space if they're ever like pushing into your spawn. I want to like not suggest this spot, by the way, like what just moved, because that gets broken with the map. So there's no point in putting something there when you might not know it's going to break. I'll just claim this spot as like the best Starlord TP spot for this map. Nothing over there. Now we're on the airfield map for Hell's Heaven, and I like to say that this map has a lot of good spots you could take advantage of. Honestly, this is a really good spot. If there's a health pack over there and you can easily access the fight from here. I wouldn't necessarily put it here because this is very easily traversable by the enemy, but it is an option. This is definitely an option. I'm not gonna rule it out completely. Now there's a less safe TP spot, and I would argue this qualifies as that. You could definitely put it here. People aren't ever up here unless you're a Rocket Raccoon or an Angela or something. But yeah, this is a good spot for some occasions, and there's the health back obviously. The only other spot I would be considering here is simply right around here. I've used this in my games plenty of times and it's done me well. Your judgment will improve on like the location of where you should put it each map, because like this is just far enough away where no one's gonna see it. And if there's a flank, you can easily swap it up to being up here. But this is like an easily placeable TP that keeps you safe when you come back. It's not like rocket science. I'm sure you've noticed throughout the video. All right, quickly for Krakoa, there is a spot right here that I like to use. I don't typically use that little room because it's heavily traversed by everyone. This is a really good spot as well for the high ground on the right side of it. And so is this spot right here and this spot right here. These are both really good spots for this map. I don't ever put my TP on the left side or the right side on this case, because obviously it's like super open. You got to use your judgment here. Like, come on, this is like a really bad spot, and don't be putting it here, please. For this map here, I like to keep my TP around this area. This is a good spot. No one's ever going to really find that. And I'm even down to keep it around this area because this is still like close to the fight. Not necessarily like super close to a health pack, but it is out of harm's way. And the other spot I would say on this map, there's not really many spots. I mean, look at the map layout. You just use your judgment from what you gained in this video. Another spot I guess would be around this area for this health pack. Oh, although I have put it in this area. This area is like the closest, most risky one, but I wouldn't even really call it risky in the first place. But for clarity, I'll just say put it here. Now for the last point on Krakoa, as I'm moving to point, I typically place my TP there as a first spot before I start moving in deeper. But in all fairness, there aren't many spots on these domination maps, so I'll start using this spot up here near my pack, because we all know this is like super deep and will not get found. And if you want a quirkier spot and you're working on this part of the map, this is always a good spot as well, except you want it more in the middle, so it's harder to find. I don't really ever keep it down here because this is a commonly traversed spot, which is also very open to big red flags for a spot. And if you want it on this side of the map and your TP keeps getting found, you could always place it here. Now when looking for a spot on Clintar, this area does have windows, so you want to keep that in mind. This is a good default spot to pick. And when you're done with that, don't forget there are a lot of good spots on this map because it's pretty hidden. This is an area that's not commonly traversed. If you want, you could also have it here. I would not put it over here, mostly because this fits the criteria for hidden, but not something that can really get you anywhere with health. Somehow there's no health pack here, even though it looks perfect for a spot. Also, don't put it in here. This is very commonly traversed as it's the only health pack in this region. You can technically put the TP here, although this is more risky. And the one other good spot I would recommend is here, inside this corridor. Final one for this map. I've definitely used this spot, but there's like almost no time where this is really necessary unless they're like right around this area and you want something close by that's hidden and easily accessible to your healers. Yeah, on to the next point. There are also a few good spots on this map. First off, I usually place it right there, not here, because this is something where if I'm in the flank and my team is getting overwhelmed, they're gonna instantly find this and I have no way out. But here I do have a way out. There's a good chance. Now if that's not a good spot, you can always place it here. This is next to a health pack and next to the fight, but also hidden. Now when looking for a spot on the left side of the map over here, there is no problem having it around this region. Just try and keep your line of sight here and here limited, because this is the health pack you're trying to aim for. Honestly, you could have it over there. I haven't used this spot, I don't think, but I've used the spot where it's around this area. So it's ultimately not too far from the fight, but both work. Now you should be getting the clear idea of what I'm looking for when I consider a spot good. And for this map, this is the spot I would claim as I go to point. There's not really many good spots on this map, so let me take you through it really quick. This spot, too open, too traversed, or too traversable. I wouldn't say this is traversed very much, but it's just way too open for my liking. Anywhere on the left here has too many lines of sights, so if you have it here, anyone flanking just for like one moment will see that wide in the open. This is a very wide in the open area, even though it's like a little cave. Even this area right here, it's not close enough to packs, and is easily traversable by a flank. You could technically have one up here, but this is like the only other area on the map I would say deserves a TP. So right there and around this area. So right here or like right here. But that's not to mention you couldn't use this area. This area is just a little far from your team typically at all times, because if you get flanked or they're waiting for you to TP or something, like you will get caught off guard. You only have one little health pack before you have to travel quite a ways to your team. But no one ever spawn camps your TPs anyway. I've never been spawn camped, so I'm going to assume you guys haven't either, unless you had it in a really bad spot. But yeah, that wraps it up. There's nothing really else to cover. Those are all the maps in competitive at the moment. And if you watched through the whole video, you now have the better judgment as to picking a location and seeing if it's a good fit for TP instead of purely relying on specific spots. Although these spots are good. Now, all these spots I've shown you, you don't have to rely on each specific coordinate of each spot in each map, because you should have the idea down now that all I'm looking for is no line of sight, it's behind cover, it's far enough away from the fight, and it's near a health pack / your supports after you use it to get out of jail free. But yeah, hopefully this video helped, and I'll see you in the next.